We now move on to the second sheet, which is where we create the actual comments that we use in the reports. So this is what the second sheet looks like. In order to understand how this would be created, we'll start by looking at the reports proforma itself. Schools and colleges usually provide the proforma that they want their staff to use. This is an example from a college, and for that reason, rather than having different subjects such as English, maths, history, geography, and so on, the way that this is broken down is into different areas of learning for one particular course, which might be all about English or all about philosophy, and so on. So there's subject-specific skills, written and oral expression, and so on, as well as some standard data about the student and about the teachers. I've made the text a little larger so that it's easier to see. So this is what I will be basing this example on. Some of the standard data, such as the student name, tutor group, date, the unit or module, and the teachers' names, they would be dealt with by a combination of the final sheet, where standard data from the first pupil reference sheet that we entered in, that will go through to the final sheet and can be copied from there, or we can pre-fill it. So because you would be producing all of these reports, you could put your teacher's name into the report proforma itself, and you'd probably be writing about the same subject or unit, and therefore could enter that into the proforma too. There's also room for target grades or results there as well, and they'll also be grabbed from that final sheet. So now let's move to this spreadsheet and start putting some information into here. First thing that we want to do is decide on how many levels we want to consider. Usually teachers will think in 3 or 4 levels, such as good, satisfactory, and unsatisfactory, or perhaps having an outstanding as well as an option. So I've entered in 3 here: good, satisfactory, and unsatisfactory, and you'll see that there's a corresponding number in this yellow row below. Now we need to delete any numbers that we're not going to use, so because my example is only going to include 3 different levels, I need to delete the 4. So with that deleted, that's good to go. Next thing I would want to do is to set the thresholds for attendance and punctuality. So I need to scroll over to the right here, as indicated by the arrows on the comment there, and this uses exactly the same levels as I've just set over to the left. I've got thresholds that I can set for attendance and a separate set of thresholds for punctuality, which you can set them the same if you want, but some people might want to set them differently. So to set a satisfactory level, we might say 90%, and good would be anything above 95%. And here we might say 85 and 90. The unsatisfactory is already set at 0, so anything above 0 but below 90 or 85 would be classed as unsatisfactory. Then anything between 90 and 95 would be satisfactory, and so on. Okay, so that's our threshold set there. So we don't have to, in levelling students, we don't have to worry about levelling them for attendance and punctuality. As long as we enter the data into the pupil reference sheet, the spreadsheet will deal with that automatically. We do, however, need to write some comments for those different levels. So for example here, I've entered some comments, standard comments for attendance and punctuality and grades. In order to get a better view of those, we can extend the formula bar down here, and you can drag it to whatever is a good level. We can also zoom in a bit here so you can see more clearly what's going on. As we move from the cells, the comment in here is changing. I'll come to the actual writing of some examples of writing the comments shortly, but let's lay out the structure first and get an idea of how that works. So down here on the left, you'll see the leftmost column is called subject or area, and the second one is called topic. I'll now give some examples of how the subject or area of learning and topics work together. If I refer to the reports pro forma I'm using for this example, the first comment is about subject-specific skills, referring into particular to things such as understanding, knowledge, and problem solving. I will call this for short understanding, and I'll need a 3-letter abbreviation to go in to label the area of learning. I will use UND for short, and I've written that down 4 times because I want to have 4 topics within that area of learning. The first one will be physics terminology. By that I mean the basics of understanding physics and being able to talk about physics. Then physics concepts, maths as used in physics, and problem solving. Those will be my 4 topics on which I will write a comment along here, and the spreadsheet will combine the comment for each student on these topics into an overall comment on their understanding and subject-specific skills. Now you notice that I have the levels above, and therefore I need to write a comment for where a student is good at physics terminology, where their physics terminology and basic understanding is satisfactory, and then the same for unsatisfactory. And I will repeat that 4 times for physics concepts, maths, problem solving, and the spreadsheet, once I have leveled the students on the next worksheet, the input table, will combine those comments. So for example, we may have a student who is good at physics terminology. They may, however, be satisfactory in their understanding of concepts and maths, and also for problem solving. The spreadsheet will pick up this comment and then the comments for satisfactory level at the other 3 and combine those together and make it specific to the student by putting in their name and pronouns. Another student may well be satisfactory at this level and their physics concepts, but when it comes to maths they're very good at that and quite good at solving problems as well. So this student would have a different set of comments as per the levelling that we do on the input table, and the spreadsheet will then combine those comments and make it specific to that student. I'm going to start by writing the comment for good physics terminology. I'll start by using the name in square brackets, indicating that I want the spreadsheet to pull the name from the pupil reference sheet. So name in square brackets there. Has a very good grasp of scientific terminology and has an excellent knowledge of physics concepts. So that would be my good statement. In fact, I will say, and he or she has an excellent knowledge of physics concepts. So again, the pronouns in square brackets there. Now I'll write a similar type statement but at a satisfactory level. So I'll start with the student's name. So I'm writing essentially the same comment here, but instead of saying a very good grasp, I'm saying has a good grasp of scientific terminology. And this time, instead of saying he or she, I'll say his or her grasp of physics concepts is also good. Okay, so you can see how it's a similar comment. So whatever comes down here, it should connect on fairly well with. Depending on how you might write an unsatisfactory grasp of terminology or concepts, you may want to be more diplomatic or more straightforward. You can say something like So there we have a set of comments entered now. Those were just some examples to give you an idea of the kind of things that you'd put in there. And then in addition to those, we would have a set of comments for physics concepts, maths and problem solving, and those would all be combined together at the various levels, one per student, to give an overall picture of a student's understanding of the subject. So they would all combine together. Some students will be good at the basic terminology, but perhaps they'll be nearer satisfactory when it comes to understanding the concepts in physics, and they may also be satisfactory in their application of maths to physics as well. So you see that these comments will all link together. With that in mind, there was one other thing that needs to be done at this stage, and that is in each comment we need to add some space at the end. So I'm going to do that now. And the reason for that is that the spreadsheet is going to take these components of the comments from physics terminology or physics concepts, physics maths, and link them all together. And in order that we don't get odd sentences where one word is pushed right up against the full stop, we need to put the space in here. So remember to put space in at the end of each of the comments. You can see these ones do have the spaces there so that we don't get any situations like that. Next thing to do would be to show you how you put in the next section, which would be WRO. This is written and oral work or expression, so this is going to be written work and this will be oral expression. And I'm getting that from here, from the reports pro forma, written and oral expression. So I then start writing my comments again. Name is very articulate. In there, I'll say in his or her written work. Now you notice that in this case I've capitalise the his and her because I'm starting a new sentence, so therefore I want it to reference the correct pronoun, which is the capitalised version from the pupil reference sheet. So that would be a comment for good. The student's work. The student is very articulate in his or her written work. His or her written work is clear, concise, and very detailed. And then you would do similar things for satisfactory and unsatisfactory. Once we've finished designing the comments for written work and oral expression on these two rows, we'd then continue to refer to the proforma and work our way down these different subjects: independent study, wider engagement with the subject, the ability for students to work individually or in groups, reliability, and so on, until we have comments for everything we need in the proforma. There are a few other things we need to note about this aspect of the spreadsheet before we can move on to assigning those levels to the students on the input table. The first thing is that the top 3 rows are reserved for attendance and punctuality and a comment on grades. So that's one for attendance, this is for punctuality, this is for grades. That doesn't mean that we have to have those comments, and it also doesn't mean that they have to come first. If we didn't want to have a comment about attendance, we could just delete all of these and leave them blank. That way any comments won't be assigned. But also, if you're using a mail merge, then you obviously have control over what goes into the Word document. Likewise, if you're manually copying, you have control over that. So you can leave them blank or leave them and just ignore them for the copying and merge aspect of it. Also means you don't have to do them first. On this proforma, attendance and punctuality come in part way down, and that's fine. We can order the arrangement of the comments as we wish, and that will happen on the report compiler, so we'll come to that later. There is an issue here with the square bracketed terms in these comments here. You'll notice that they're still using grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 and grade 4. However, on the pupil reference sheet, we customise those to homework 7, which is an average homework mark, the induction test, Unit 1 and Unit 2 grades. Now, the spreadsheet's not going to recognise these terms because they don't exist on the pupil reference spreadsheet. Therefore, we would need to update them here in this comment and the 2 parallel comments so that the spreadsheet can recognise them. So we've got a Unit 1 mock here, and therefore we would need to update that. And Unit 2, the average homework mark is going to be homework 7 and induction test. The important thing is that either way, the 2 sets of terms are consistent, and that is also true for any use of pronouns here as well. So we've got he and she, his and her. As long as those exist over on the pupil reference sheet, which they do, then there's no problem. But if you start using pronouns in square brackets here that don't exist on the pupil reference sheet, then the spreadsheet won't find them and replace them, and therefore they'll be left in the comment. So make sure that there's consistency among the 2.